This is the Logitech MX Vertical ergonomic mouse. Originally released in 2018, this is the only mouse in Logitech's Master Series that hasn't been receiving regular updates. In fact, if you look across all the products in that line, it sits with just the Logitech Craft keyboard as the only one that's not been kept up to date. Now, 6 years after this thing was released, I'm here to give you a review and an analysis of how this looks today in late 2024. And honestly, the results may be surprising. I'll also do a comparison to the newer, smaller, and cheaper Logitech Lift mouse, which was released in 2022. And finally, I'll provide a quick wish list for the folks at Logitech for the features and changes that would make a perfect second version of the MX Vertical. Let's jump in. Beginning with the build and design, the MX Vertical, as the name implies, is a vertical mouse. Rather than a traditional mouse shape, the vertical mouse positions your hand in a handshake position, which ergonomic experts have shown results in less strain on your arm over time. If you've seen my previous review of the Logitech Lift, you know that I have not historically been an ergonomic mouse user, but I really fell in love with the Lift when I initially tried it. Ergonomic mice can also seem intimidating if you've never tried one before, but you can probably adjust more quickly than you think. Though it will feel weird the first time, you quickly get used to it, and at this point I can bounce back and forth between a regular mouse and a vertical mouse without really skipping a beat. I'm a strong believer that getting used to this shape is not something to be concerned about. If you come in with an open mind, you'll be cruising in no time. If you are someone who has pain, or if you're worried about developing the pain associated with long-term mouse use, this style of mouse is a really easy entrance into the ergonomic space. It's not as dramatic a change as a trackball mouse, for example, where you're fundamentally changing the operation of the mouse. I've really grown to honestly like this shape, and I think that it'll work for most uses. The only time where I really don't like this shape is when gaming. I find that it's harder to be fast and also precise at the same time, although I'm sure that you could, with enough practice, make it work if you really wanted to. For some more specific details, the MX Vertical has a 57-degree angle, which provides a nice place for your hand to rest. There's also this nice large shelf on the other side, which allows your thumb to rest as well. Overall, the mouse is on the larger side. Logitech describes it as good for medium to large sized hands. I'd say my hands are average sized, and if anything, this mouse does feel a bit large. So I'd say you definitely wouldn't want one of these if you've got super small hands, and I think that it would probably work particularly well for people with large hands. Design-wise, the mouse has a very professional look. It comes exclusively in this black and silver color, which is simple and clean, though not particularly exciting. It shares a lot of its design with the MX Master Series of mice, which personally I'm a big fan of. It has very similar soft touch materials around the back, which feels super nice when using. It also has a similar ridged pattern that extends from the tip of where your thumb sits all the way around to the buttons on the other side. Overall, it's a professional, premium design that I like a lot. The button layout is straightforward, but leaves a bit to be desired. On top, or I guess on the side, you've got traditional left and right clicks, along with a line-by-line scroll wheel. These, unfortunately, are both kind of points against this mouse in my book. First, the main buttons are totally normal mouse buttons. Nothing obnoxious or crazy with them. They don't sound particularly loud or anything. They're just normal. Here you can hear. However, after using Logitech's silent clicks for so long and seeing them become pretty pervasive across the lineup, especially at the higher end, I wish it were here on this $100 mouse. The scroll wheel is also very basic and doesn't keep up with Logitech's current latest features. It's simply a simple line-by-line scroll wheel. Once again, it's not obnoxiously loud or anything. Here you go. Overall, it's fine, but given the presence of Logitech's Smart Wheel technology, and then especially their mag speed scroll wheels, this just feels out of date. If you want to learn more about all the different scroll wheels that Logitech offers, I actually made a video walking through each of them one by one and explaining what they all mean. You can find that linked in the video description. Around the rest of the mouse, you'll find forward and back buttons, which are essentially silent. I think they're pretty solid, but some people may find them just a touch on the high side. Based on where your thumb rests naturally, the lift to get to these buttons may feel annoying to some, though it's hardly a deal breaker overall. The final button is on this top flat silver section. This is by default a DPI adjustment button. It allows you to swap between two different pointer speeds, giving you a touch of flexibility in use, which is nice. The sensor itself can handle anywhere from 400 to 4,000 DPI, which is fine for a productivity mouse, but certainly not on the top of the line by today's standards. You can use Logitech's Options Plus software to set the precise levels of sensitivity that this button will switch between. Alternatively, you can change this top button to operate a different function entirely. You can also do this with the forward and back buttons and the middle mouse button when you click the scroll wheel as well, just so you know. Each of these can be customized overall and with specific settings based on the program that you're in. A couple of options you could include would be having this take a screenshot, using it to open your calculator, or trying out some of the various AI features that Logitech has been rolling out. This functionality is really solid as long as you can install Options Plus on your device, since many companies will prohibit it on a work machine. But being able to decide if you want a DPI control or something else entirely is really neat. From a functionality and features perspective, there are many of the usual Logitech suspects, plus one really bad thing and one really good and unexpected one. First, a quick rundown of the usuals. Compatibility is vast with support for every major operating system. You can seamlessly switch between up to 3 device connections via Bluetooth. This is controlled via a button on the bottom of the device, as is pretty typical with higher-end Logitech mice. Inside, there is a 240 milliamp hour battery, which despite its smaller size, does average 4 months of use on a single charge, and you can quick charge this thing to get 3 hours of use with just 1 minute of charge. That's really great if you are trying to get through the end of your workday and your mouse dies unexpectedly in the middle. Charging is done via a USB-C port at the front of the device, which sits oddly askew from the center. It doesn't hurt anything, but it's just a weird observation. All right, now let's talk about the one good and one bad thing I mentioned. Starting with the bad. If you want to use a 2.4 gig USB connection, the MX Vertical still utilizes the now out-of-date unifying receiver rather than the newer Logi Bolt receiver. Based on Logitech's website at the time of writing, there's only 3 mice that still have the unifying receiver in production. The other 2 are both less than half the price. For a $100 mouse, they really need to update this. If I want to put one of these on my desk alongside my MX keys or MX mechanical keyboard, for example, I may need to use 2 different universal receivers. I've ranted about this topic many times in the past, so I will spare you the full details, but just realize that if you rely on using that USB receiver, for example, because your company doesn't let you connect Bluetooth devices, this one uses that old receiver and not the new one. It's not all bad though, because this mouse does have one connectivity feature that literally shocked me. It was so surprising that I wrote it down in all caps in my notes. This mouse can use a fully wired connection. That's right, Logitech, whose highest of high-end keyboards and highest of high-end mice exclusively work wirelessly, for some reason supports wired use on this mouse, and quite possibly only on this mouse. Let me know in the comments if there is another that you know of, because I don't think there is, but I could be wrong. Outside of their gaming mice, which I think there's multiple that support both, I think this is the only one in their regular lineup. So how does it work? Because typically when you have a wired mode, you see multiple options on the power switch. Usually something like off, wired, and wireless, though the exact setup can vary. In this case, you just have on and off, much like any other Logitech mouse. This wired connection works when you have the mouse plugged in directly to your computer and powered on. When you do this, the multi-device button no longer functions and instead just lights up all 3 device lights simultaneously, I guess indicating that you're in the wired mode. For those who may be skeptical, I did ensure that my mouse wasn't connected via Bluetooth to my device, and I even turned off Bluetooth entirely when using it just to be extra sure. It's actually a wired connection. Now, I know there are a million mice out there that offer wired connections. However, not from Logitech. Just to double down on emphasizing how odd this is, Logitech's $170 MX mechanical keyboard is wireless only. You can plug it into charge, but that's it. Their top-of-the-line MX Master 3S mouse, wireless only. You can plug it into charge, but that's it. This is something that every single modern Logitech device lacks, and yet somehow this 6-year-old device already had it figured out. Multi-device Bluetooth, USB receiver, albeit the old one, and a wired connection. It's got it all. The only instance where I actually could see this becoming a potential issue is if you need to charge your mouse while using it, and specifically while using it across multiple devices. In this instance, you're locked to whichever device you're plugged into. In that instance, you should either charge it when not in use, or you can plug it into a wall charger. Doing this allows you to charge while still using your multi-device Bluetooth connection, so it's really the only true solution. It feels so strange to be emphasizing this as much as I am, but I'm just shocked that I didn't know about this capability, and I'm shocked that they did this once, but then they didn't choose to utilize the same functionality on any of their other mice or keyboards. It's weird. All right, now that we've gone through the details of the MX Vertical, let's talk about how it compares to the Logitech Lift. The biggest differentiator between these two mice is size. The Lift is smaller and is designed for small to medium-sized hands, whereas the MX is for medium to large-sized hands. I find both to be usable with my hand size, though I definitely agree with Logitech on their sizing recommendations. If you have large hands, you'll find the Lift to be too small. And if you have small hands, the MX Vertical will feel a bit massive. If you're somewhere in the middle, it's kind of a toss-up. The only place where the smaller size becomes an issue for me is that my pinky tends to drag on the table slightly. It doesn't bother me too much, but since the MX is tall enough to avoid this, it's worth calling out. From an ergonomic perspective, both mice have the same 57-degree angle and feel very similar in terms of comfort. The biggest difference I note is that the Lift is a bit more curvy. This shows most prominently in the buttons. The MX has very straight buttons, whereas the Lift has curved buttons. This results in a slightly more comfortable feel on the Lift, as it tends to keep my hand in a slightly more natural position. The Lift has other enhancements over the MX as well. It has silent clicks and a higher end smart wheel that allows you to flick the wheel rather than just going line by line. It's still multi-device Bluetooth capable and has a USB receiver included, though it is that newer Logi Bolt receiver. Finally, we talked about how the MX is a unicorn with its wired mode, so I'll call out specifically that there is not a wired mode on the Lift. In fact, there isn't even a charging port, as the Lift uses a single AA battery for power rather than a rechargeable battery. For all these differences, the Lift comes in at $70 compared to $100 for the MX Vertical. If you want to see my full review of the Lift, you can find it linked down in the video description. If your hand fits comfortably on either one and you want my personal preference, I'd personally save the money and stick with the Lift. Finally, regardless of size, if you want a left-handed version of an ergonomic mouse, the Lift is your only option, as the Vertical does not come in a left-handed version. Okay, let's talk about value and pricing. The MX Vertical retails for $100, a price point it has maintained for the entirety of its 6-year existence. As it's an older product at this point, you can regularly find it on sale, or you can utilize a coupon to get a discount. Check out my video on Logitech pricing if you want to know all the tricks to getting the best deal on Logitech products, linked in the video description. $100 for a mouse is a premium price point, and it's the same price as the MX Master 3S, which is easily my overall favorite mouse at the moment. If you're interested in ergonomics, your choices can feel limited and assessing quality is challenging. The good thing here is that this is a quality product. Even with its age, it holds up. If you're unsure whether a vertical mouse is for you, but you definitely need an ergonomic solution, you can also check out Logitech's newly released Ergomice featuring thumb trackballs. I won't be reviewing these personally as I have such an extreme hitchhiker thumb that using a trackball is basically impossible. But in case you are interested, I wanted to make sure that you knew those are out there as another option. As for the MX Vertical, the thing that sets it apart are first and foremost that wired mode, which is so rare amongst other Logitech products. It also features a solid ergonomic design and is great for larger hands. The materials are premium and similar to Logitech's other high-end mice. And finally, the battery life is very solid at 4 months per charge. From a potential deal breaker perspective, the mouse still utilizes the outdated unifying receiver. It doesn't have quiet clicks, which I definitely want to see at this price point. It also has an old and very basic scroll wheel. Finally, this mouse is old and may be updated soon. There's nothing worse than buying a $100 tech product only to have it updated right after the return period. So there's always going to be that risk. Now, speaking of updating, here is a quick wish list of what I'd want to see in an updated version of the MX Vertical to make it the perfect high-end productivity-focused ergonomic mouse. First, update the scroll wheel. At minimum, a smart wheel, but preferably the mag speed found on the MX Master and MX Anywhere mice. Add silent clicks and make sure the side buttons remain quiet so that this thing is very quiet overall. Refresh the look, adding in a white version ideally to give some optionality rather than just the basic black option. Update the connectivity to support Logi Bolt, but please keep the wired mode. With just those changes, you could re-release the MX Vertical 2, and it would get a strong recommendation from me. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think about this 6-year-old mouse down in the comments. While you're down there, consider a like and a subscribe. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you in the next one.